Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to NEWSROOM. I'm your host, Omar Khalid. But today is the 8th of December 2021 and we have a lot of interesting stories for discussion today. We will begin with the Regional People's Democratic Party President Mehbooba Mufti, who has said that New Delhi is not only forming political proxy parties in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir region, but is also forming rifts within different political parties for its own political gain, and of course so that it could legitimize what has happened in 2019, the abrogation of Articles 370 and 35A. This is going to be our leading story. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, of the day concerns Shah Mahmood Qureshi Sahab, who met with the NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, and he met him in Brussels. A lot of important topics, including, of course, the core issue of Afghanistan was discussed during the meet. A lot of important bilateral issues were also discussed, whether it be Pakistan's cooperation with the NATO or what is happening in the region. Our foreign minister also apprised him of the situation in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. He also met with the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Vice President Joseph Borrell, with whom he co-chaired the 6th round of the Pakistan-EU Strategic Dialogue on Tuesday. He also met with the Belgian Foreign Minister, who's also the Deputy Prime Minister, Ms. Sophie Wilms, in Brussels. Our third story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the Chief of the Defence Staff of India, General Bipin Rawat, whose chopper has crashed in Tamil Nadu. An Indian Air Force helicopter, as per a tweet, has crashed in Tamil Nadu's Kunur. Today, the Chief of the Defence Staff, General Bipin Rawat, was on board the chopper along with his wife. 5 people have been confirmed dead in the incident. We will get more details as and when, and we will share that with you. But for the moment, nothing is official about General Bipin Rawat. Let's begin with our first story, ladies and gentlemen, and that concerns the Regional People's Democratic Party President Mehbooba Mufti, who talks about the BJP's nefarious designs within the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir and also in the country, as far as creating rifts within political parties is concerned for the gain of the BJP. More in the following report.
Despite deploying 900,000 troops in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, Indian regime has been unable to suppress indigenous resistance against its unconstitutional annexation of the valley. In its bid to persistently rule the annexed valley with a barrel of gun, Indian government is dismantling democratic structures of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir to install political stooges in power. Debunking Indian political manoeuvring, Regional People's Democratic Party President Mehbooba Mufti revealed that New Delhi is forming proxy political parties in occupied valley to legitimize its unconstitutional measures. The Kashmiri leader further exposed Hindu nationalist BJP's expansionist designs by stating that policy of BJP is to create divisions among regional parties to enable only those politicians to become member of Legislative Assembly who support August 5, 2019 annexation of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The Saffron Party's decisions in occupied territory since the abrogation of Article 370 are aimed at disempowering the people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Amid political upheaval in occupied valley following the abrogation of Article 370, new political parties and blocs are emerging, whose rhetoric on ongoing rights violation matched with New Delhi's indifference regarding sufferings of Kashmiris. The purpose of introducing these sweeping changes is to close democratic space in the region while stripping Kashmiris of political voice. It is high time for result-oriented, proactive steps to shame and expose Indian war crimes at the international level and to counter its political maneuvering by lawfare.
Now, to discuss this issue, we've been joined by Awais bin Wasi. He's an analyst. Awais, thank you very much to have joined us. How do you see this statement by Mehbooba Mufti Sahiba as far as these nefarious designs by the BJP and Narendra Modi are concerned? Of course, when we talk about the statement of Mehbooba Mufti, she said, and I quote, in a statement, the former Chief Minister of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir has claimed that the Prime Minister Narendra Modi-led BJP aims to divide the political parties in the state to make the unconstitutional decisions constitutional in the assembly, and with this we mean of course the abrogations of Article 370 and 35A. Now to talk more about that, we've been joined by Awais bin Wasi. He's an analyst. Awais, thank you very much to have joined us. Awais, what do you make of this statement by Mehbooba Mufti, and how is this going to change the regional dynamics, especially in India and in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir? Do you feel that is going to make any dent whatsoever?
Thank you so much for giving me this chance to share my thoughts on the statement that you just mentioned. I think that in order to contextualize and analyze the statement of BJP's chief Mehbooba Mufti, we need to trace back BJP's policy, which materialized when it came to power in 2014. And abrogation of 370 and 35A, that was their whole plan. And they, made every possible effort in their first tenure to revoke it, but everything ended in smoke because neither the Freedom Camp nor the mainstream pro-India parties, they did not buy that argument. And in the second tenure of the BJP, when BJP managed to stitch alliance with PDP, and PDP, out of the pressure from the ground, would not agree to the BJP's proposal to revoke Article 370 and 35A, and that's why that coalition, that ended, and it could not continue because of this prime reason. And if you see the, in 2008, Amarnath agitation movement, and when the first, there was a move to bring Hindus into the valley. So Congress was at that time, Congress and National Conference, they were in alliance. They could not pressure, they could not sustain the pressure from the ground. So my point of telling this thing is that even within these parties, either National Conference or PDP or Congress or Panthers Party or any other mainstream pro-India party, even they could, create a group or outfit among these, out of these mainstream parties. I don't think that BJP will be able to implement
but nevertheless, Awais, the issue remains that there is these are huge allegations by Mehbooba Mufti, whether she calls of the rift within the political parties in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, whether she calls for an issue as far as the Congress party itself is concerned, that there is a division within the Congress party which has been prompted or initiated by the BJP itself. Don't all of these parties, that include the Congress party as well, understand the dynamics that the BJP is playing with?
I think they are very much cognizant of the BJP's moves and the reason tree of behind these moves. That is why they are not going to agree with the BJP's proposal. And I think that this this idea of bringing some outfit out of these mainstream parties, I don't think that BJP will be able to succeed in his plan. The reason is because if you see the resentment and anger and annoyance of the people of Kashmir against BJP in particular, so you cannot say that BJP will have some convenient position to make that penetration into the Kashmiri society. For example, after the 5th of August 2019, if you analyze the subsequent events, so these subsequent developments substantiate my point that that BJP will have trouble in making whatever it did in de facto. It will have a trouble to make it a de jure. That is not going to be possible, what my understanding has been.
All right. So, as far as this region is concerned, and of course, the atrocities that are being committed on the people, and in the wake of all of these statements that emanate from Mehbooba Mufti, we've also had statements from other Kashmiri activists all around in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. There is a huge, a question mark when it comes to the way the BJP and the Indian forces have been treating the people in this region and this region in itself. There are the human rights atrocities, there is everything that is going on as well along with that. Now, Mehbooba Mufti understands that she's been part of a PDP-BJP alliance government as well between 2016 and 2018, and she has also voiced the decisions that were made by the BJP on occupied territory since the abrogation of Article 370, and very openly as well. We know also that Narendra Modi met with her along with other Kashmiri leaders some months back. Do you feel no proper outcome came of that meeting between Narendra Modi and these leaders that included Mehbooba Mufti? And if so, what do you feel is the future of the illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir region as far as the political dynamics are concerned?
In order to project, the future, again, what I would say is that we need to see the history. For example, if you see whatever, it could be traced back to 1931. And after that, even after partition, if we see that, the developments and moves which India had taken in Kashmir, they all bounce back. Particularly, if I mention the decade of 1990, and if you want to, want to read what happened in 1990, so we can read My Turbulence by Jagmohan, and that is the clear depiction of what kind of draconian laws have been imposed: Armed Forces Special Power Act, quota, Public Safety Act. So all these, draconian black laws had been imposed to subdue, that movement, the mass uprising. So that couldn't happen. So if we see, and have some lesson from the recent history of 1990, in which so much brutal, brutality had been perpetrated by Indian state, and still they could not subdue the freedom movement and mass uprising. How can you claim that after the so-called this abrogation of 370 and bifurcation of the state, they will be able to subdue people's sentiment? I don't think that, if history is any guide as far as Kashmir is concerned, I don't think that they will be able to succeed in subduing people's sentiment and diluting people's sentiment for freedom and self-determination. I don't think so that it's possible. And recently, you can also see, for example, in the recent past, you must have seen the participation of the general public in the funeral procession of martyrs, young martyrs. You can see. And another very important development which you can observe is that recently a very highly educated, competent PhD holders, professors, they are joining the resistance movement. And you can also see that people, youngsters, they have also started writing. They are telling stories. If you can see, for example, you can find a lot of resistant literature which is being produced in Kashmir. So now this sentiment of freedom, this anger and annoyance against India is much deeper, and it has penetrated much deeper into the in the state of Jammu and Kashmir than the previous one.
All right, Awais, also when we talk of this situation in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, this is a volcano that is just about to erupt or will erupt very soon. When it erupts, will the Indian government be able to sustain the after effects?
That sustenance of that moves that they had taken, I don't think that that move would be sustained, because there is a pent-up anger in the Kashmiri society, and any move can bounce back, and any move can snowball that movement. And whatever India has done so far, it could be ended in smoke, because there is a resentment across the state of Jammu and Kashmir. So that sustainability of the moves of BJP government, I don't think that has some lasting effect in Kashmir. It will, sooner or later, it will bounce back against India.
But you know, the issue remains that there's a huge pressure that is being put and placed, whether it be politically or administratively or even otherwise, from a human rights perspective as well, on the people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Nobody is raising any finger whatsoever. We do have some human rights groups that talk about it now and again, or some reports that come out on it. Even the United Nations publishes reports on it, but nothing really tangible happens as in the form of some kind of an action whatsoever. Do you feel the world is waiting for the region to explode before it does anything?
You know, you're quite right that there is unfortunately criminal silence on the part of the world bodies, especially the United Nations, which has that mandate to resolve issues such as Kashmir. But unfortunately, this after the passage of 7 decades, that issue remains unresolved. However, we can say that United Nations, despite the role it should have played, it has also, as you have mentioned, that some of the reports which must have been taken by the Indian government if their conscience remains alive. But unfortunately, they did not, respond to those human rights violations report released in 2018 and 2019. And these are the United Nations Human Rights Council report. But India did not move back, an inch from its position in Kashmir. You can also see that recently Khurram Parvez has been arrested, and this is the gentleman, along with his colleagues. They produced a report published later on in the 800 pages document that is the structure of violence. If you see and if you read carefully the structure of violence, you can understand by the primary data that this is the largest militarized zone on the planet of Earth. In this context, when this is the largest militarized zone on the planet, and this is surrounded by 3 nuclear powers, and 2 of them are, unfortunately, they may inch closer to the confrontation. The silence of the world bodies, silence of world capitals, I think it is extremely grave. It could lead to any catastrophe in that region. So such kind of context, I think, ask them, warrant them to play their due role, play their active role, and especially the developments in Afghanistan. I think it has become more important, more significant that the world bodies and the powerful capitals should come forward, should play their role, not for the conflict management, but for the conflict resolution.
Thank you very much, Awais bin Wasi, to have joined us and to have talked to us in detail about the different angles of this statement that has emanated from Mehbooba Mufti Sahiba, who understands the politics of India and Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. And if she says what she has said and what she has been saying in the past as well, there really seems to be a huge drift politically inside of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir and also outside, as has been perpetrated as per the statement of Mehbooba Mufti by the BJP. Let's see where all of this leads to as far as our not so friendly neighbor is concerned. Our next story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns Shah Mahmood Qureshi Saab. He is in Brussels. He co-chaired the 6th round of Pakistan EU strategic dialogue. Also there, as well as meeting with Jens Stoltenberg, the Secretary General of NATO. A lot of important matters were discussed, and heading all of those was the situation in Afghanistan. More in the following report.
Stands at the brink of worst humanitarian disaster as crippling international sanctions on the Taliban government have led to the collapse of the aid-dependent economy. More than half of Afghanistan's 38 million population is facing imminent food shortages in the harsh winter months, but humanitarian crisis in the country is preventable. With drought, pandemic, conflict, food security and harsh weather, the scale of Afghanistan's challenges is very disturbing. Sensing the destabilizing spillover impact upon region, Pakistan has been persistently raising alarm over deteriorating situation of Afghanistan. In his meeting with NATO, Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi called on the world to provide humanitarian and economic assistance to the war-ravaged country. As a responsible regional actor, Foreign Minister Qureshi reiterated Pakistan's strong commitment to peace and stability in Afghanistan while registering Islamabad's grave concerns over the worsening humanitarian crisis in the neighboring country. Foreign Minister Qureshi also had an extensive exchange of views on the situation in Afghanistan with High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy Josep Borrell as Pakistan co-chaired the sixth round of the EU-Pakistan Strategic Dialogue in Brussels. Pakistan is also hosting a session of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation's Council of Foreign Ministers on December 19th with a focus on highlighting the need for urgent assistance and mobilization of resources to avert a humanitarian crisis and economic collapse in Afghanistan. As the country's intervening powers are unwilling to budge from their entrenched positions, Islamabad is relentlessly highlighting the importance of maintaining sustained engagement with Afghanistan to promote stability and jointly counter emerging challenges.
Now, to discuss Foreign Minister's visit to Brussels as well as these important meets that he's had and also the co-chairing of the sixth round of the European Union-Pakistan Strategic Dialogue, we've been joined by Rana, Athar, Javed Saab. He's the Director General of Pakistan House and a renowned analyst. Thank you very much, sir, to have joined us. Rana Saab, tell us a little bit about Pakistan and the EU and Shah Mahmood Qureshi Saab's visit at this critical juncture when our neighbor Afghanistan is facing a critical turmoil as far as humanitarian and economic issues are concerned. How important will Pakistan's help and pressurizing the international community would be as far as Afghanistan is concerned?
Well, thank you very much. I think it's a very critical time, not only with regard to Afghan situation, but also Pakistan's reassurances to the European Union that Pakistan has done and is doing she can to revitalize all the efforts, and we are encouraging our international community to help in the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan. Not only that, Pakistan on its part actually, as we all know, has contributed remarkably, both in terms of facilitating the previous talk processes and also in evacuating most of all the European nations, remaining diplomatic staff, their military and whatever, especially the citizens of Europe, who were working in one way or the other in Afghanistan. They were evacuated safely, and Pakistan International Airlines and Pakistani government actually unconditionally supported efforts, while others were unable to. So I think in this part, it is also reassurances on the for the European Union as well, to the European Union about Pakistan's efforts in all areas like trade, economy, Pakistan's collaborations, and Pakistan looking forward to EU to establish better channels of communication. All of that said, we all also understand and know that situation in Afghanistan has worsened, not only because the international community doesn't want to do it, but they are unable to find a framework of supporting the new Taliban government there. The issue of recognition of Taliban still looms there. Then, of course, the conditions set by the United States in suspending all the aid to Taliban, and that emanated the crises, and that's why meeting with the NATO Secretary General and also the European authorities and the high officials would render some kind of plan, as there must be an agreement, so there must be a talks about it. The Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi, under the leadership of Prime Minister Imran Khan, of course, is also trying very hard to convince international community. It is not about politics, it is about the Afghan people, and Pakistan desires, and Pakistani people and Pakistan desires that there should be sanity prevail, and they must come forward whatever system of relief they agree with Taliban government. Because look, Pakistan can only support these efforts. Pakistan cannot make decisions for Europe and international community.
That is true, but how important, Rana Saab, do you feel in this whole context will be Pakistan's contribution now that it has told and pressurized indirectly not only NATO but also the European Union about the current crisis in Afghanistan, do you feel that there would be some kind of a reaction emanating out? Because as we see in Afghanistan, there is the crisis is looming day by day, and we are also holding an extraordinary meeting of the OIC on the 19th just on Afghanistan. Do you feel that the EU is listening to Pakistan?
Well, we cannot definitely say they're listening. I'm sure they are listening to Pakistan, but the EU somehow is, in my view, assessment is waiting for green signals from the United States and other NATO member states, because frankly, it's all their understanding of the situation on the ground. But our understanding is that you are racing against time, because as the day passes, and the harsh winter in Afghanistan has actually multiplied the miseries of the Afghan people. And I think it's a high time for NATO and others about not only forget about the diplomatic, as we say, the political thing. It is regarding humanitarian issue, and the humanitarian issue can add further fuel to the instability, because Taliban are doing whatever they can to maintain peace and security in Afghanistan and rule of law and governance. And it's of course the Europeans are well aware. I mean, it's only until August all were there, and they know the situation. They know that the aid is suspended. So I think whereas EU, we hope they are listening. Whereas we understand they have the complete information on the ground. They're not really only 2 months ago, 3 months ago. They have all the intelligence information. They have all the information on NGOs, NGOs, which are not there anymore.
Rana Sahab will continue our discussion with you on this very important issue, but we have to take a short break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back. And as we were discussing Pakistan-EU collaboration in the context of the visit of Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi Saab to Brussels, Rana, Athar, Javed Saab, we were discussing the different aspects of it all. One thing that was also discussed during the different meets was the situation in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The position that was also reciprocated by Jens Stoltenberg, as well as by of course, the person with whom Shah Mahmood Qureshi Saab also talked, as far as the High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Vice President Joseph Borrell is concerned, and also the others that he met there. Do you feel also that some positive outcome could come as far as the situation in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir is concerned, or the stance of the EU is concerned on this issue?
Well, if we be able to get EU positive stance in response to this discussion and meeting, that would be a good start for the people of illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, because of course we all know what has been happening since August 29th. It has been disastrous for these people, and of course European Union and their countries really hold very high regard for human rights and international human rights violations, and there is of course, if this is the case, that we able to engage them and get their support to make India understand that it's an oldest agenda on the United Nations Security Council. It's an illegally occupied territory, and it is being people are being brutalized, and through this ideology of Nazi's ideology of RSS and BJP. This has actually rather defamed India and India's so-called secular society and democratic society. This must affect.
Rana Sahab, what about the future of the GSP plus status that the EU has accorded to Pakistan? Do you feel this is something that is going to go on for the next couple of years, because it is being re-evaluated by the European Union as we speak?
Yeah, I think it should be go on with it, because it's not about only Pakistan that EU's policy should change now, because Pakistan has basically extended hand, and at the trade between the IT summits happened just recently in Denmark, and there are many things happening as far as Pakistan's external trade efforts are concerned. So, of course, it's also European for the European Union. It's also a win-win situation because the pandemic is again the fifth wave again is gripping different European countries. There is a need for them as well, of course, and it's also for Pakistan. It's really will be good news, and it is a good news that this G plus thing continue because this would help Pakistan's business people to be able to supply more products and to become part of a bigger beneficiary group on the economic gains on the side of, in addition to the foreign direct investment, and of course the overseas Pakistanis' role in expanding Pakistan's treasury, basically. I would say
all right.
definitely.
We would really like to foresee a stronger relationship between the EU and Pakistan in the wake of this visit and the other visits, and of course an understanding of the basic issues that plague this region by the European Union, by the NATO as well, that has been in Afghanistan for 2 decades, and it understands the complexities of the region as well. We really hope that a proper understanding is really conveyed to these authorities, and they understand also that Pakistan is trying its level best as far as trying to find some kind of solution to the humanitarian and economic crisis in Afghanistan is concerned, and I hope they will lend a helping hand to it in the days and weeks to come. And of course the OIC extraordinary meeting is also something that is extremely important for Pakistan. Thank you very much, Rana, Athar, Javed Saab, to have joined us, to have talked to us about Shahid Qureshi Saab's visit to Brussels, his meeting, his co-chairing of the 6th round of the Pakistan-EU strategic dialogue that happened on Tuesday, as well as his meetings with the NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, as well as Sophie Wilms in Brussels, who is the Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Belgium. With this, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's newsroom. But before we go, we would like to confirm the demise of Chief of the Defence Staff of India, General Bipin Rawat, who is among the 13 dead in a helicopter crash that happened in Tamil Nadu's Konur. First of all, the reports did come that there had been a crash. Videos of flames had been reported, but now it has been confirmed that the Chief of the Defence Staff of India has now been killed along with his wife and others in this crash. He was, of course, having this position of Chief of the Defence Staff since 2020, and in 2019 this post was created. He got this post in 2020 after retiring as the Indian Army Chief. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new stories and segments as they come along. Till then, stay tuned, stay safe. Allah Hafiz.